Hey, sup, pups. Welcome to another episode of the Power Up Podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking about all things entertaining and recapturing that nostalgia because, as far as I'm concerned, nostalgia and entertainment for the sake of entertainment is dying in the industry. There's a lot of weeds festering that place, and I want to hang out with people who may have experience in the industry, just hang out, chill, listen to their stories, and just connect through that means of whatever it is that entertains them: video games, artwork, anime, you name it. With us today is a very talented special guest, Mr. Doug TenNapel. Like I said, man, I've you just got back from YouTube and you're starting up an art channel, which is in the description. And I actually started watching some of your videos and stuff, and I really love your line work, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a place for me to be an artist. So I've done a lot of different YouTube channels where
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing like hardcore pumping politics or whatever. And it just kind of started. I like doing politics, believe me, but I don't like only doing politics. And after a while, I'm going, I've abandoned art on YouTube. And that's like the main thing that I do is art. So I'm going to try to do like a live drawing a day
Mm-hmm.
is kind of not a live drawing, but I record it, live and then I post it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Well,
trying to
I
kind
saw.
of go back. That's just to keep me sane.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? Especially the gifts God's given you, for sure. I noticed that you kind of, like you said, you record the videos, you'll upload them, but you're also looks like you're doing with shorts as
Hmm.
well. Have you know?
Hmm.
I've kind of heard that like with the shorts algorithm of YouTube, it's kind of like a whole different sort of
It is.
genre and stuff like that. So
It is. It's like a totally different platform, but it's the only platform that YouTube is interested in right now. So I have to do a channel. I hate shorts, but clearly it's important to YouTube. So I hope to exploit that. So a whole lot of what I do is just like reverse engineering that algorithm to try and figure it out. So I'm exploring shorts.
yeah, do you think they're trying to go the way of TikTok? Honestly,
Yeah,
I feel like they are.
they have to because the TikTok has taken their market share.
Yeah, I mean, if it would come down to like TikTok and YouTube, they both suck, first of all. But I'd rather take YouTube. Just well, hopefully that they're not selling your dad at a
Oh no,
China.
they all are. They're
Yeah.
all going to use it against you. But so it's not that I think. I mean, obviously, just TikTok being what it is a little bit more evil than YouTube. But
Oh
it's more
gosh.
YouTube is looking at, these companies. Their value comes from the amount of eyes on it, right? So
Hmm.
if TikTok has all of the 18 to 24, and they're draining off of YouTube, clearly, I can see it in my own. If you look at your metrics, in your analytics, you can see it that it's all skewing older and older. So YouTube has to do something about it. It's the same thing that Mark Zuckerberg did with Facebook. They're going, our analytics are ruinous. Like, we'll take all the old people's money. We love the old people for the money, but they're not the future. Like within 10 years, 50% of our audience is going to be dead. So what do? You They take big risks, and YouTube is like, they have to. I think their intention is to completely get rid of old YouTube. They just can't do it. They would gut themselves the way that Zuckerberg went
Hmm.
too heavy in Meta too early. So they're just going to build their shorts on top of it and slowly try and take back that market share. But if it was up to them, they would not do long form anything over a minute.
Man, I miss old YouTube back in 2006. Oh
Oh
man,
man, it was so good. It was
it was like the Wild
it
West.
was like 4chan. You can just
Oh,
like post a whole video. You can say anything. People are just goofing around. No one was afraid of talking. Now we're afraid of talking. You gotta look through all your own data. It's terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what the internet is all about, because it's starting to get, it's like these bozos just don't understand that you just they're going to try to, obviously, but you the internet is so gigantic and stuff. It's like, if you don't like what someone says or what someone makes and stuff, don't watch it. It's not that hard. But these people have taken it upon to where even an opinion is like a personal attack on their self being. It's like,
Hmm.
well, first of all, if you want me to get extreme, I can get extreme,
Yeah.
sort of thing. But like, gosh, these weak spirited people with like who just live online and just crave that dopamine hit because they cannot get enough of it.
Yeah. So
Got
what do
some.
you know about these big tech companies by what they do, right? You learn what their values are, and you learn that they only valued free speech to get in the room. And then as soon as they got in the room, really, they never valued free. They'll take on any value to get in that room and get power. So
Hmm.
really, the number one is pragmatism, ends justify the means, anything to get the power. And they'll say that they believe in free speech. They'll say they believe in business. They'll say they believe in America. They'll say they believe in women's rights. They'll say they'll believe in anything to get in that room. But
Hmm.
number one is power.
Absolutely. And it's funny enough because I've heard so many like pastors or people who preach the word and stuff are like,
Mhm.
oh, well, the real ones know that it's the love of money, not money itself.
Right.
But I actually believe like power is probably the number one stuff, because power can come in like all different kinds of
Yeah. And
shapes
money is
and
just an
forms.
increment of power. So
Yep.
I think if you're going to go back to what is it that's evil in the Bible about money, the love of it, it is the love of power, right? Because you want this little coin that will give you a quick access, to the benefits it confers, which is it represents, say, a certain an amount of labor or
Hmm.
something, and now you can wield it, you know. So, but really, it's the wielding. It's not that God has a problem with ink on paper
Hmm.
or a gold or coin,
Hmm.
made of gold. That's not what he's.
Yeah,
I don't think that's what he's getting at. It's the
I mean,
love.
you look at Abraham and you look at Job, they were quite wealthy people.
Yeah.
God blessed them with that and stuff. And Job in the beginning did the right thing. And then once uh, all the stuff happened, he still kept his faith. But then those people came that were influenced by Satan
Hmm.
to start warping his idea of what he thought God was and stuff. And luckily, God actually came down and stopped that at the end too.
Hmm. So
And
that's true for everyone in your audience. If you're
mhm,
miserable and you're trying to wield power or your love of it, because you can be poor and you can be very greedy, then that's where God can free you. It's obviously it's always going to be in your nature. You're going to be fighting. By the way, Lord of the Rings, look how the whole thing opens with the ring. Like they had these rings because man, was greedy for power. Like he just lays it out in the first couple sentences.
there you go. And I mean,
That's it.
you even look at the temptation of Jesus. Satan
Hmm.
offered him power. He said, "I'll give you this world. All you got to do is listen to me." And
Hmm.
Jesus said no, because
Hmm.
you understand. We got some people. Nico says, "Sup, y'all? What up, Nico?"
Hi,
We
Nico.
have. Oh gosh, I can't say that name. Hervoy.
Hervoye Grahovic. He's an old fan of mine. He's an old
Oh,
friend of mine.
cool. He says, "Finally, something other than Earthworm Jim is mentioned in the description." Well, we'll get to Earthworm Jim too in just a little bit, and then Babbage says, coming to YouTube, Earthworm Jim Swords. And why is my font different? Oh, I hate everything. I had this font set up specifically, and then it's changing something, and then now
Yeah,
it's.
this is a different program that I'm used to using, this Melon app. It works really well. So I'm an old dumb guy.
Mm-hmm.
And every time someone sends me a link to their show, usually it's StreamYard or whatever,
StreamYards.
and I'm terrified to click it. I know StreamYard really well, though. I really like it because it's so simple. Zoom, not so much. Skype, not so much. But I go, oh, he sent me a Melon app link. Let's see what kind of garbage this thing is. I clicked it. It asked me it so clearly. You don't have to search for where the microphone and camera is. It's right there on the front page where it should be presented already, highlighted. It's amazing.
Well, I am not. I do not have any promotions of Melon, but literally Melon is a StreamYard alternative. Like, as you can tell, like probably pretty damn close, if not simpler.
It
Uh,
is. It's the next step. It works really well, so I'm impressed with
yeah,
that.
I found out, someone mentioned that to me, and then I dabbled with it and had some technical issues, but they smoothed everything out in the background. And yeah, I like it. I think it's cheaper than StreamYards if you ever want to get a pro version. And actually, I kind of discovered if you buy the pro version and then I don't know if this is against the term, but if at some point you said I don't want to go to the pro version and downgrade again, there's a third package where it's literally the pro version. You just have to have the logo in the lower right corner, and as you can see, you can shrink it down there, and then
Oh yeah,
everything's
it's
unlocked.
tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's very cool.
it's like if you I do it by monthly, and it's like $9 a month. So
Worth it.
so only one watching. I know. What can I do? What can I say? But
I
I'm just
tweeted this out, so there should be more than one, maybe two.
Yeah, there is too. As a matter of fact, we are multi-streaming. That's another thing that I like about Melon, like StreamYards. You can multi-stream. We are currently on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. So, and then like I said, all of Doug's information should be in the descriptions of uh where we're multi-streaming at. So, and now stuff just skyrocketed. So we are
There we
good.
go. They're all coming in.
But
They'll come. You
if
lay the
you
cheddar down, they'll come.
if you stream it, they will come, I guess. But yeah, man, going back to big tech, I guess we can kind of transition over into your run in with big tech, because you said some stuff that a lot of people apparently didn't like, and but your case was unique. I believe Nick said because YouTube has different ways of striking people, because you can get content struck and then but yours was a special case. You were like, I forget how you
Human band.
you were
Yeah.
human banned. That's insane.
Yeah, they would.
Like
I would do new channels, and they would do a facial recognition on me. And if one of my friends had me on as a guest, and he got a channel strike threat saying you have a banned person on your channel. It was all unique. So I'm just saying, someone over at YouTube was after me. And then about, I don't know when it was, 2 months ago or so, maybe 4 months ago, I sent YouTube an email just saying, "Hey, can I have my channel back? Do you mind? I think being a year off your platform is enough." And they didn't send me notification, but suddenly I went into YouTube because they wiped my whole Google account was gone. Suddenly I could access that Google account. Suddenly I opened up YouTube. Now all of my subs were gone. All of my content was gone, but I had a channel there and it said, gather up watch hours to get your monetization. I go, oh, they're going to let me start over. So I started over.
mhm.
So there it is. Doug TenNapel channel. That used to be Doug TenNapel in exile.
But now you said it's Doug TenNapel art.
It's just Doug TenNapel.
Oh, just
Yeah.
Doug TenNapel. Okay. And that
And I think I only have 1,700 subs or 15, maybe 1,200 subs. I don't know what it is. It's a low number. So I need subs. So everyone get in there and sub.
Yeah, get in there. See some awesome artwork. But
It's just art.
yes, there are other ways. There are other places that you could go and hear. But
Yeah, my politics are on Ed in Exile as a sock puppet, my son's sock puppet channel. So that one is working. So you can, but that's not as big of a deal. Right now I'm really pushing my art channel.
Mm-hmm. And what is your goal for your art channel? Because I listened to some of the videos and stuff, and one of the things I actually liked that was really cool is that you said you were struggling with coloring a little bit, and that's something I struggle with, is just understanding that the different tints and hues of like colors and stuff like that.
Drawing makes a lot of sense to me. Same with writing and character and stuff. Color does not make sense to me. It's much more whatever it is. I don't have it. So a lot of my Color work is me experimenting and learning that I've been doing for my whole life. I just feel way more crippled. For some reason, I'm just not that comfortable with color.
Hmm.
Which you just assume, oh, artists, they're all the same. They can just, once they jump into an art form, they can grasp all four. I go like, whatever it is the color is, I might as well be trying to speak, Portuguese. I just don't got it.
Chaos Smash with $2 says, Greg, the bald bitch boy. Also, hi, Doug. Very rude. How many times do I have to say I'm not bald? I'm balding. It's a very different sort of thing.
That's getting very close, Greg.
I know we're gonna be rocking the shaved head,
You've
and
got to shave it. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're already getting everyone accustomed to the baseball cap, so they won't know whether if you shave it or leave it thin. I'm getting thin too, just so you know. You can see there's some pink up there. You can see through. It's not, I always see like older men with long hair and I go, ooh, I should do that. But then I see how thin my hair is and I go, Doug, in about 5 years, it's going to pretty much be transparent.
Yeah, when you're a discriminated individual, as gingers are usually prone to be, especially getting wiped out from movies, you're either cursed with keeping your vibrant red hair or it goes away right away. And
That's right.
I was very much blessed with the the balding at the early age.
And you go out in the sun and you just blister. You walk outside and you just blister.
Your freckles get get browner. That's my way of tanning.
So I got a hard band off YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They let me back on. I'm trying an art channel. I've got other channels that I'm working on. But the bigger thing is just we're all watching kind of big tech go crazy with censorship. And we saw it with Twitter until Musk took over.
Oh, definitely
And
would like to hear
the bigger, more scary one is Google. Google's
yes.
the search algorithm is just reorienting, and really they believe it's their job to kind of carve up and dictate humanity.
Especially when Google bought YouTube, like that's definitely very scary about that stuff. And what's funny is here are these big techs saying we gotta determine what gets shown up and that the right ideology gets shown and stuff. But like you gotta ask yourself, like well, you may think that they're not even scratching the surface because there's the dark portion of the internet where all the truly disgusting things happen, trafficking and all that stuff too. But then I'm more than positive that they're part of that as well.
I don't know what they do I only know that they're exactly as fallen and dark as everybody else is. So any amount of propriety, like the idea that they're somehow good or somehow moral behind the scenes, it's like, I know people, and none of you fool me. No one fools me. That's because I know myself too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the idea that they're up there somehow behaving with all their power is bull only. We know, if they ever release that dossier, it would horrify you. Just normal horror would happen. Normal.
But it's interesting though, because like the Bible kind of talks about this too. It talks about the principalities and the power behind all that stuff too, and we see that a little bit with the Prince of Persia and the Prince of Greece.
And what is whispered in secret will be shouted from the rooftops.
Yep.
So one day it will all be exposed. You can't hide. You can't hide that stuff. It goes public eventually.
Yep. That is crazy. So you got exiled, as you put it, and went over to Rumble, and I did I take everything with a grain of salt. I pulled up your wiki account just to see, because you got the beautiful subject matter of criticism and controversy, and all that stuff. And really it sounds like it's just you spoke about your faith and you said, hey, based on my faith and where I stand, I believe in God made it for man and woman. disagree
Yeah.
with same-sex marriage and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
There's only one form of marriage. In fact, right now the Democrats are running up their Respect for Marriage Act, which is actually disrespect for marriage. So they do the word brainwash stuff, but yeah, I'm a
yeah.
pro traditional marriage guy, and I believe I'm that because God is that. Literally, it's the only correct form. So it would be great to believe something else, but I don't get my beliefs from my culture. So what are we gonna do?
Hmm.
And that's what everyone's upset about. They're going, but culture says, but your peers say, let us pressure you. And then I go, well, just give me a good argument. And there's no good argument. So I just go, nope, I'm not going to believe it. And they go, well, what if we take your work away? And I go, that doesn't change my beliefs. Of course not.
So was that during because I've had some comic book um creators and writers. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you do you know Joe Ball? Have you heard of Joe Ball?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
I've had him on the show, and he kind of talked and filled me in a little bit about Comicsgate, and I'm sure that you were probably
I was once a part of it
once a
until I
part
found
of
out it
it.
was a complete fraud.
Okay.
So
So I am kind of curious about Gamersgate.
I was part of GamersGate
Were you
too.
part of
And
Gamersgate?
yeah, and it was not a fraud.
I'm
Um,
not that one, yeah. I mean you can definitely tell nowadays too, because they're remaking all old games and updating it for modern
yeah.
audiences
The
and all that.
Gamergate controversy was just that people with the right ideology would get a pass from game critics about their game, regardless of its quality. Okay. And then if
Hmm.
you didn't, get in line, then your game could be panned by all of these game companies. So all of them, Polygon, Kotaku, they wrote articles on me. I was Gamergate before Gamergate existed. And I was Comicsgate before Comicsgate existed. So long before they were even waking up to their brand new conservative values, they largely believed Democrat things. But having just woken up to their conservative values, I'd been fighting this stuff for like 10, 20 years. I mean, I was one of the first ones that uh, these gaming companies wrote against me because I was the creator of Earthworm Jim and I was pro traditional marriage. And said that Jesus was the only way and all this just pro-life. They just went nuts, completely nuts. And then comics did the same thing. It took comics a lot longer to get into it than games, just because I think comics are so much smaller than the games as far as a
Hmm.
business goes. Therefore, the journalism is smaller. It's a little more niche, whatever. But man, they found me. And so I work in video games, comic books, and animated television. Animated television found me and went after me. This was long before Gamergate even started. So when Gamergate took off and they go, Doug, you're canceled. We want to help you. But the conservatives within Gamergate, I go, oh, kids, you're so brand new. You don't know where this is going. Like, and then you watch online movements that don't know what to do with their own power.
Hmm.
They don't know they don't have good tactics because an amoeba does not have good tactic. And so Gamergate eventually just kind of fell apart and there was nothing to it. Right. And then, the good guys on Gamergate. And then Comicsgate, same thing. I got into Comicsgate. Oh man, these guys are all this is a total sham. So I got out. And it's not that the audience is just online audiences are so ignorant. They don't they want to fight, but they don't have the right tactics. And their leadership, if it's just a show, their leadership is terrible. So the
Hmm.
leadership doesn't know what to do either. So largely within internet fandoms, almost no good comes of it. Like, because they need leadership and they need clear values, and they don't have clear values because first of all, they hate values. For starters, these are people on the right who just don't like conservative values. And I get it. You don't like it, but you're not going to be able to, walk the line if you can't draw the line.
Hmm.
And they don't even believe a line exists. So
Yeah, that's the thing, that there's wolves in sheep's clothing on either side too, and it's all
Yeah.
it's
And it's
all
not, I should say it's not that they're evil, it's that they're ignorant. So, but
I,
but you're not ready to go into battle if you're just a mob. Sorry. That's all the left. That's like Antifa, you know.
yeah.
You don't know what you believe. You only know to break stuff, and you're probably not going to get. And if you look in hindsight at the last, say, 4 to 5 years of 6 years of what GamerGate has accomplished and what Comicsgate has accomplished, really not much.
hmm I am seeing a lot of like indie people
Yeah,
like starting to build stuff, which I actually do appreciate, because
I do too.
it's that
And
point.
I've always said that from the beginning, by the way. I said, you have to go independent. You're not going to change a corporation. Disney is not going to wake up one day and go, we're losing money. No one respects us anymore. And then,
Mhm.
so we better change. No, they believe they're saving the world. And I think I'm also, as a Christian, I would lose my business before I'd turn my back on it. So this is like a religion to them. And so they're not going to give it up. So you're only shot really at business if PayPal, if Wells Fargo, if Indiegogo, if Disney. I always think it's an incredible privilege to get to have a Wells Fargo account that they still keep me. I'm just saying it's a privilege, because one day they're going to take it away. You're not going to get to do, and you're not going to get electricity if it's up to them. You're just going to be, they don't think you should have food. They just don't have the power to take it from you. When they do, they will.
Uh-oh, that makes me nervous. I have a Wells
Just think
Fargo.
of power. You know the principle already.
Hmm
Look at what they say about Trump voters. Look at what they say about the stinkies and the deplorables. And you shouldn't be able to go to school. You shouldn't get medical attention. You shouldn't be able to work for this entire channel, this entire publishing wing. You should not be able to operate on it. So I'm always for people going independent. It's hard to actually go independent, and it's hard to get seen, because I still use their platforms, right? We still use their tools.
hmm I mean, but there's times where you have to be on the enemy turf as well
Yeah.
too, because you can try to support all tech all day. We saw a surge of like, oh, YouTube's doing all this censorship, and there's mass flagging happening, let's go to Rumble and stuff like that, and that's great and everything, but what can we do to make the all tech part of the tech,
Yeah.
and some and
And no one's ever had a Rumble channel that was just organically started on Rumble. You have
no.
to have had a Fox show or a YouTube show or a big Twitter following or something, because those, I'm on locals also. I'm on Rumble. I'm on locals. Those are all based on already having a following. YouTube is someplace where a nobody can show up and get 1 million views. That's an
Mhm.
amazing platform. Absolutely. It's in corrupt hands, but it's amazing.
Oh yeah, a lot of let's see, plug in Earthboy Jacobus Color Edition. What is that?
Don't listen to people. That's Hervoye.
Oh,
He's just,
don't.
he's a friend. You don't have to do what he says.
Oh, no, I
He
was
wants me
like,
to
what?
plug Earth by Jacobus is one of my comic books that I'm doing that
Oh, okay.
it's not ready to go yet. So I haven't been promoting
Oh,
it.
okay. I just had no idea what that that was. I'm a
Yeah.
little out of the loop.
I've done 20 graphic novels, most of them published through Image or Scholastic.
Ah,
And then I did my last 4 or 5 independently. So that's going to be one of my next ones coming up that I'm going to re-release it independently from, it was once on Image.
well, since we're still talking about video games and whatnot, I am actually quite curious, because I looked at your video game list. Um, I actually sent you that I did play Earthworm Jim 1 and 2.
Mm.
Really stupidly hard games, but those
Yeah.
were the best ones,
They're only
back in.
hard because you're young, Greg.
Well, I'm
Those were
30.
called normal games when I was growing up. when I was in games. Those were normal.
Well, I grew up and I was born in '88, but grew up in the '90s, early
Yeah.
2000s. But no, yeah, like it's a hard game. I beat them by any means necessary, but but they're good. They're really good. And I was actually that's awesome that you also worked on Jurassic Park,
Mm-hmm.
because I liked that game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Jungle Book. I thought the Jungle Book is actually I think an underrated game. That's a
Yeah, it's a
pretty
good game.
pretty
Fun.
really good game.
Those
But
were
since
really simple back when games were games. They weren't trying to be immersive experiences. You know, they were much more like Pong or ping pong or something, just simple.
and that's kind of something I'm actually curious about too, because for me, obviously, since I just said I was born in '88, but grew up in the '90s, grew up in the 2000s. Like for me, it just felt like that time was like you could the world was your oyster. You could do what you want and not have to worry about what's happening now. Censorship, backlash. We need to show diversity and all that stuff. When you were in the industry and stuff like that, was stuff like that starting to like rear its head? Was it already established or was it pushed away?
Not in the 90s. So my career started in the early 90s, right? I got a
Mhm.
Jurassic Park, I think in 91, I think, or 92, somewhere
I've
in there.
got 93 for Jurassic Park, also Jungle Book, and then Earthworm Jim was 94 and 2 was 95.
Sure. So I was working on them the year before that they came out,
Oh,
just
that
so
makes
you know.
sense, sir.
So
That's the release date. Sorry.
so in my mind, it's a different date than what everyone else knows,
No,
but I was
yeah.
always on them
My
a
bad. That was
year
release
before.
date, probably.
Now the 90s were still, um, it was about the work and all. Now the woke stuff right now we have a word for it, right? Woke.
Hmm.
Pop culture has picked up on it. Back in the 90s, it was only mainstreamed in academia, and it was called political correctness back then. Now, I had friends in the university that would tell me, Doug, this political correctness, you're not going to believe it. Like, these people are crazy. They believe a man is a woman. It was mostly about the gay issue, but it was a lot of things. It was it was anti-human. So it was hyper anti-life, hyper political correctness about racism, stuff like that. And I just said, well, big deal. It's on the university. It's a bunch of dumb hippies, a bunch of dumb kids. It's mostly women. They're really getting angry and activist, about it. And I just go, yeah, well, it's not going to pierce into the world or anything. Well, those are all the people that ended up going to work in Hollywood in the late 90s, early 2000s going forward. So all of their interns coming in, all of the professors are teaching it, all of the students are getting saturated in it. And now that's all college is. It's literally all college is now. It used to be like you had an education and your extracurricular was political correctness, was your club or whatever. Now that's the classes. It's like feminist math and like Black Lives Matter, art theory and all that stuff. It's all everywhere now. So now, and we're seeing the fallout just of what was at the university 20 years ago. Wait till you see what's coming. Dude, it's going to be a society can't. I mean, look what they did to the military. The
Oh, yeah.
Marines, no one wants to be a Marine anymore. They took the greatest killing machine and put dresses on them. So it's just not going to function. It won't work. And a society will tend not to repent until it has crashed. So I'm just saying if I had to guess, the next 50 to 100 years is going to be a great crash of some kind. I'm not a doomsday guy. I'm just saying we can overcome a whole lot of stuff and we can recover from Great Depressions, but it's going to be events that are probably bigger than the Great Depression and human life cost greater than we experienced probably with the Civil War.
Unless we're in the end times.
Unless we're in the end times. I just don't know if it's the end.
Yeah.
It could be the end, or it could just be another testimony that the end is near.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's bad though. So in the 90s anyways,
mm-hmm.
it wasn't in games. We were still kind of rampant immoral capitalists in the 90s. And then that started really coming up in the 2000s. And as time progresses more and more, it gets more and more potent. It takes over more. It is more explicit, more common. It's normal now, the political correctness.
So would you
and the philosophy, by the way, started in the early 1900s. So the guys that first wrote the books on it, did the thinking on it, which somewhere between Darwin and the Beagle, 1860s, and the year, probably right around 1900, is when the shift away from God started. And then by late 1800s, early 1900s, you have the modern art movement, you have postmodernists. So they're no longer modernists. And modernism was rearing its head with math and science and David Hume and empiricism and all that. And that brought in the postmoderns, Wittgenstein, Camus, all of the postmodern thinkers, Rousseau, all of these woke thinkers, Marx, Lenin. So that is at the Freud. That's at the start of the 1900s. It took until the 2000s before it really reared its head in popular culture. So it has a long tail. That's why I'm saying what you're seeing sown now, you won't see for probably 20, 40 years, and it's going to be really bad. The foundations were so awful.
So do you have like a certain time where you think kind of like how, like I think since I grew up in like the 90s and 2000s that it seemed really open? Do you have like a time where it felt like you could just do anything, like you yourself personally, or?
Yeah, I would say right up to about the early 2000s is when it mid about 2005, right before Barack Obama, is when it was still kind of the chaos of culture still alive. What happened was you were still living off the fumes of the moral majority in the 80s. And atheists will always have a better time in a Christian world than a Christian world will in an atheist world. In fact, atheists hate atheist worlds. They get chewed up just as much. So we were living off just way past. We were still living on manners and intact families and tradition. And so everyone had a better time under that, right? You could make fun of the prudes. Now we make fun of the woke, the hippies. They're the squares.
So with Earthworm Jim, obviously you created it, drew it and stuff. With Jungle Book and like Jurassic Park, let's see. What was your involvement with that?
I was an art director on
were
both.
Okay.
So my time on Jungle Book was very short because by then I left Virgin in the middle of that project to work on Earthworm Jim. So Jurassic Park, I was the art director from the beginning to the end. So I actually did animation on it and helped design the game and worked with all my buddies on it. And
yeah, very cool. Yeah, it says you were just an animator, but you were the art director as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I was like the lead on the project, and then
that's another hard game too.
That one's really hard. The programming isn't great on it, so it's not super intuitive controls the way that they, Earthworm Jim's a hard game, but it's fair.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is not so fair. Same thing with like Battletoads, like that's a hard game, but it's not fair. Sonic is a hard game, but it's fair.
Yeah, and that's actually on other shows too, I've stated I really love the ROM hacking community and like modding and stuff like that because and whether it's just due to technical limitations at the time or budgeting or whatnot too, you have the people that come in and like actually like sit down and go, well, if we would have done this, it would have fixed this and stuff like that. And I really enjoy like that sort of aspect of video gaming, but even that's starting to get frowned upon too, because they'll declare it as cheating, which some people do. Like this is more newer games. Like
when you let other people take over stuff, they can make it cheaty. I'm just saying, they can. Doesn't make it bad. It just means.
So since you worked on Jurassic Park and it says it was exclusively Sega Genesis, because the Super Nintendo version is completely different.
Yeah,
Did
we
you
did. They had two completely different teams working on it.
did you ever like cross paths with one another
We,
to
it's
kind of
weird. We did.
oh gosh.
I got invited. I got to go on the Jurassic Park set when they were doing Jurassic Park 1, and I got to go to Phil Tippett, who was doing the puppet animation back, when they found out that he lost the puppet animation gig. And we went to Stan Winston's place to see the puppets being built, and moving around and stuff. Well, they had invited both game teams to visit all the sets. So when we were in San Francisco to go into Phil Tippett's shop, we saw this other team of guys coming up, and they were a bunch of Brits or Scotsmen. And we go, "You're the other team." I don't know how we recognize. I think my boss, my producer, recognized them. And they said, "Yeah, we're the Nintendo team." Now later, they were all best friends with all the shiny guys when I was on Earthworm Jim. I knew all those guys much better when I went to Virgin. They had all gone to Virgin. Yeah, we ran into each other, and I go, "Holy cow!" And they did. They did a great game. I think their game's actually better than ours, but it was neat to see another game team there. And then later, I ended up being friends with all these guys. So we just saw each other on the street.
They should have added a save feature in the Super Nintendo one, because that is one long game.
Yeah.
So did with specifically Jurassic Park, I'm bad with movie dates. Was that a little was the movie already out, or like when you were
it was somewhere around there anyways, because the movie, we worked on it before the movie came out.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, if you were able to.
So when did it come out? Was it 92? It's not important. We did work on it before.
Okay.
It came out, but they had already shot most of the scenes. They were just inserting some effect shots when we were working on it.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool indeed. And then you worked on the Neverhood, Skull Monkeys, and Boombots, and those ones I haven't played. Was the Neverhood one
It's clay animation? Yeah. It's a point and click adventure game. That's probably my game that I'm the most proud of, because that's the one that's closest like interactive art. It's like playable art. It's the best of gaming and the best of art, I think. But it's not a twitchy game. It's not like that. And it was weird because that was DreamWorks. Steven Spielberg funded our company. So he actually started my company for him. We were one of the first contracts that DreamWorks ever did. So when Jurassic Park 2 was made, he invited me on the set. Like, I got to see that one being shot. So that was weird going all the way. I go, "Steven, I was the guy that did the Jurassic Park Genesis." Yeah, I got to see them doing storyboards, and it was amazing. That was an amazing time. And yeah, so I had my own company. That's back when they'd let anyone have a company, if you had a team. And a lot of the Earthworm Jim guys came and joined my company. So most of the art department came and worked for me that were on Earthworm Jim. And we did 3 games together. And then I realized, like, dude, I am not supposed to be the president of a company. I am going to die if I do. If I read one more spreadsheet. And I wasn't able to do that much art anymore. I was just like, man, this stinks. So, and by then games were going all 3D, and we were all 2D artists. We had a couple of 3D guys, and I wasn't going to learn that. I'm way too dumb. Kind of like me with watercolor. Trying to do color my whole life is like me trying to do 3D art. I could never do 3D animation.
I'm actually I love like monochrome, like something about just the different shading and thickness of lines.
Yeah, me too.
Like nothing, like it could like so simplistic, but yeah, it can show so much.
Like if you look at the greatest tattoo art, it's just ink. There's no color. It's just black and white. Black ink with gradation is the best tattoos. And then they put color on it. They're nice, but they're not as strong as a cool black, gradation.
So then someone, I guess, got a hold, because technically isn't there an Earthworm Jim 3 like N64?
There is. That was long after we were gone, though.
You were gone by then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't approve it either. They just did it.
Ugh.
So,
Well,
okay.
I've heard it's not good.
It ain't good. It ain't Earthworm Jim. You look at it and you just go, wow, what happened?
I guess
But
with
it's okay. That happens,
mhm.
that happens.
What was the I mean, I'm sorry if this has been asked before. What was kind of like the inspiration of at least Earthworm Jim, like sort of popping up sort of thing?
That was just my brother's name is Jim, my big brother.
Okay.
He just talked to me last week. He's got a job as a trucker. He does the run from Montana up to Alaska.
Oh.
So he was always my just one of my heroes. Jim Kirk from Star Trek was one of my heroes. And my friend Joe Potter's cousin Jimmy, I was hanging with, and I just really enjoy the name Jim. It always meant like just a burly man. So I wanted him to have a very American name. And then the earthworm part of it is just kind of everything was kind of an animal, and all the animals had normal names like Mickey Mouse. So Earthworm Jim. You put the first name with the animal, Sonic the Hedgehog, and just putting the worm in a suit. I just thought the best drama or humor, but mostly drama, is putting something vulnerable inside something invulnerable. So he's always at risk because he's just a squishy worm. He's kind of an idiot, and he's got like the power of a god almost with this suit. I just thought that was really funny and really cool. It'd be a really good adventure character. And I came up with Earthworm Jim and all the other characters in about 45 minutes. It's like it was easy. I was creating characters like every day for the last probably 10 years. So it was pretty easy to do.
I do like the Psychro. I
Yeah.
love that's a really good. I love that name. Very very
Yeah. They're
good. And
just
you
bad
had
jokes. They're just like puns. They're puns.
dude, it
The
got to love
name
puns.
tells you what they are, kind of,
Mhm. Um,
Evil the
um,
cat. There's not a lot of guesswork. It's weird because I looked up all the trademark and copyright, back then, and I'm going like,
mhm.
no one's ever called a cat evil before. Evil the cat. I
Evil
get
the
to
cat.
own it. Yeah.
Evil. Evil the cat. So is that something like that you also well, I mean obviously you probably have to take care of like with a bunch of names and stuff you have to dig in
Yeah.
and look up the trademarking and all that stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of names I come up with that I can't use. I just go, oh, I can't use that because there's 6 versions of this out there and they're already pretty popular. So I can't use them. If it's just some guy just came up with it and I see that it's common or something, sometimes I can use it. But if it's like already established, you don't want to go in and cross that. So it sometimes it gets hard to find a good name for a character. But I looked up, my character Bigfoot Bill is a Bigfoot with a kraken attached to his chest. And I looked him up. I go, there's never been a Bigfoot Bill. So there he is, Bigfoot Bill.
Bigfoot Bill. And there was a little controversy with that one too, with Bigfoot Bill 2, I believe.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
was
that's right. Sean Gordon Murphy did the cover for it. And then he got
mhm.
canceled for doing my cover. So he had to pull the cover. I
Oh,
could have gone with it, but it just didn't seem nice
yeah.
to do. I don't know. I don't, I my friends that cancel me, uh, they're supposed to be better friends than that, but it does happen. And it's not, I don't see it entirely as their fault.
Yeah.
It's it's easy for me to expect other people to be brave, but the gun's held at their head. And I'm like so far beyond it that I just don't even I don't even I would never apologize. I would never. The only way you can change my mind, you can't change my mind by threatening me or by taking work money away. Never. So I'm one of those guys. You could put a gun to my head and say, you will say these words. And I will say, no, I won't. And then they're going to have to shoot me because
Yeah.
I don't do things for other people. That's how much I respect freedom and free speech
Mm-hmm.
is I just, in the end, and especially if you're having to throw someone else under the bus. Like if someone puts a gun to your head and says,
Mhm.
or to their head, you know, and says, you'll say the words or I'll shoot them, I might say that word.
Mhm.
I will compromise my values to save someone else, you
Yeah.
know,
I'm a
but
big proponent for that friendship as well.
you find out who your friends are.
Yeah, you definitely find out, especially when 2016 rolled around.
Yeah. And by
That's
the way, Greg, I got to say something. I have some liberal friends and some atheist friends that are
Mhm.
more faithful than my Christian friends, Christian conservative friends. So I've had Christian conservative friends throw me under the bus. And I've had atheist liberals friends say, no, F you, I will
Mhm.
not distance myself from Doug. He's my friend. So,
Yeah.
and it cost them, reputation or work.
Mhm.
So I'm only
Well,
saying you find that person that says no, F you, in a lot of different types of people. I think they're most common in the Christian right because we already know that Jesus says, if you deny me on earth, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. We have that as part of our creed. I don't, and I start meeting more people where they just kind of made up their own creed and they came to the same conclusion. I think that's pretty cool.
yeah, that's the scariest thing Jesus and the Lord can say is depart from me because I never knew you.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. But
Yeah.
yeah,
After what he did for me on the cross, I'll never deny him. I can't.
mhm.
After what he did for me, someone saves your life. And then just to stay on Twitter or to be cool with your friends, you're going to be ashamed of him. I am in no way ashamed of Jesus Christ. And everyone else is just going to have to deal with it. If you don't, they're going to like, why do you have to be so explicit and vocal? I go, well, I have a very good Jewish friend who says like, you got to stop talking about Jesus to me. Okay. That's just totally offensive to me. I go, well, nope, I have to. I'm not at liberty to not talk about it. In fact, God probably only had us be friends so that I would share the gospel with you. So now you're screwed.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like what it's exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out, Doug, too, because it's we say like we're seeing a lot on this side too, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I listen. Have you heard of Chuck Missler?
Yeah. I've listened to him. Yeah.
I
For
love
30
Chuck.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Chuck. And Chuck said it best. It's Satan doesn't need to influence people to murder and to do all that stuff. Like Satan does the most damage inside of the church
Yeah.
itself too. Like that's where he knows he can twist everything because essentially that's what he did with Eve. He
Yeah.
brought in doubt. He twisted it, and I actually recently just learned that you miss it out in the English translation, but the word die, um, he got Eve to change the meanings of the word die in
Mm,
it and stuff too.
mm.
Like it's crazy, and
You
yeah,
did not surely die. Yeah. I think culture, and this is the thing that Marx or Stalin was always so good at, where they know that they have to corrupt the friend and the family. Like they have to get the kids to turn in the parents,
yeah,
parents to turn in the kids, employer, employee, because there's no amount of technology where they can police everyone. So they have to get us to police each other. So they've tricked half of America to be the giant human resources department to rat out the other half. And that's why in YouTube they could never find us for saying the wrong thing without flaggers. It's flaggers. The algorithm can find a lot of them, but very specifically hunting me personally, the only way they'd find me would be with either the facial recognition algorithm or a flagger. So the flagger is the one who actually tells people like, this is what they said on this channel, and this is offensive to me. So they need your fellow American to rat out American for his free speech to get him off the platform.
it's what happened with not just with you, with Nick. He got that
Yeah.
mass flagging.
Yeah, he
And
gets mass flagged all the time. The bigger the channel, the more popular are, the more flagging you get. So Steve
yep.
Crowder, Nick Rekieta,
Hmm.
Russell Brand, you're going to get targeted and just nailed. But if for no other reason, then you're successful. Like other people do not want other people to succeed. That goes back to the power thing.
Hmm.
is they really do want to tear someone apart if they're more successful.
So with video games, I really enjoy the is it is it actually pronounced sprite, the sprite look with like the pixel
Yeah, those are called sprites. Yeah.
sprites. I really like those, that kind of art style, I guess you
Hmm.
could say. When it came to taking your creations and putting them to sprites and to make it very fluid, because there, I mean, you can just play from Atari, Nintendo, and all that stuff. You can tell the ones where it's like there's a lot more frame animation.
Nobody did what we did. Nobody.
Yeah, I mean,
They
my
so
goodness,
so we
so
did 2D
smooth.
animation. We would scan it in. This was all developed by Mike Dietz and Ed Schofield and Dave Perry. Were all like forefronts on this thing with their game Aladdin was the
Oh,
main one they
Aladdin's
were
so good.
doing it for. They were really trying to hold on to the pencil line on the paper. So instead of over cleaning it up so that you lose that pencil line, they were trying to hold on to it. So they still had to do some cleanup because it just wouldn't be presentable, right? So they did some cleanup on it in the pixel level, tried to hold on to as much of that what the algorithm,
Hmm.
picks for a pixel in between a pixel, a 50% pixel that really helps a line smooth out, on low res. And then so that's the big thing, was holding that drawing. Number two, this is all Mike Dietz, is the amount of frames that we dedicated to what's called transitions. So if a character runs left and then runs right, if you're Mario and you're running left and you run right, it just X flips,
Hmm.
the sprite. Well, some games will put a turn animation in, where you're facing forward or 3/4. Well, on ours, we had whole animations where he would run to the right, and if you ran the other direction, his feet would do like a skip and he would turn. You know what I mean? He would
Hmm.
slow and put his feet out like he's skidding and then turn. Now, to make the gameplay fair, your hitbox, right,
Yeah.
has to do exactly what that Mario one did. It goes left and it goes right. But the art that you put on top of it does not have to follow that hitbox. So a lot of times the hitbox would turn direction and the animation would have to run through a bunch of frames real quick, you know, and overlay on top of it, just in a very general way. So you shrink your hitbox a little bit on the character to give you that play. And so whether if he's changing direction or getting out, is going from a shoot to put it in his pocket to going down to a hang, there were all these crazy transitions, because sometimes you'd go from a hang to a jump, sometimes you go from a hang to a run, sometimes you go from a hang to a shoot. And so we're dedicating a whole large percentage of the cartridge space to transitions, which no one else did. And then we also had Andy Astor, who is this amazing programmer, who came up with a program called Chopper, which was the ability to take, our tiny cartridge, tiny memory space. He built this tool that would chop up every animation into tiny pieces so that it would save redundant pieces, which is kind of what streaming does if it doesn't refresh a space. He was way ahead on that. So he was able to like collapse all of the animations into as tiny of space on that cartridge, which gave
Wow.
us more frames to use for transitions. So
That's
that's the
awesome. Because even like actually the soundtrack is like, if we're talking Aladdin, like the soundtrack is like good as well too.
Yeah, that's Tommy Tallarico. So similar with what he was doing, Tommy was doing on that end. Dave Perry and Nick Brody and Steve Crow and Nick Jones were doing it on the gameplay. They were saying, what is smooth? What is intuitive when you grab this controller, and you just start feeling it and you start, pushing the buttons and seeing how it responds on screen. And they're just like, they would go in and they'd pump the physics a little tiny bit. Just if you look at games that are terrible, like Bubsy, and just like terrible physics where the animation doesn't have anything to do with the
Gosh, Bubsy.
hitbox, you just start going, we were really that team that was all shiny. Those guys those guys have been doing games. They were doing them out of their cars. They were selling. They had the digital data on a cassette, and they'd sell them out of the back of their cars in the late '80s. They were just amazing guys that just knew the code,
Wow.
and in a way, it was so primitive. The code was very primitive, but they were clever, and so they kind of got to do more with less. I think was a greater thing than today, where you have giant tool. And you just plug in a bunch of dumb people and each person does one tiny little job and you're on a team of 300 people.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was like one guy had to do, those guys from England, the Brits and the Irish, Perry and Steve Crow and stuff, they did the entire game by themselves. Like they had to do all the art, programming,
Wow.
and they'd be like written up in a game magazine and sell them out of the back of their car. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, the way you were describing, you mentioned a lot of names, so I apologize if I don't.
Yeah, I'm sorry for just running through the names. People who follow Earthworm Jim will know
that's
those
awesome.
guys. Yeah,
That's
they did Disney's
smile on
Aladdin.
my
They're the
face.
ones behind Disney's Aladdin, Global Gladiators, Cool Spot Game,
Cool Spot,
Jungle
okay.
Book,
Lion
and
King?
Earthworm Jim.
Were they on Lion King too?
They did a lot of the stuff that was used on Lion King was their development, but by the time Lion King was moving along, we were off the game.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's like you wouldn't have Lion King if they didn't do Aladdin, like that engine.
Going back to the guy that you said like figured out to make a code to have like the individual like.
That's Andy Astor. Yep.
Andy Astor. It sounds like almost like he literally created Toon Boom. Have you heard of Toon Boom? Where it uses the.
Yeah, we all knew of Toon Boom.
Sure
we were doing the predecessor, which was called Digicel. Was the predecessor of. It was some program that was the one before Toon Boom of digital animation.
Oh man, that was so awesome. I'm sorry. I really like that, learning about the behind the scenes.
Yeah, you were just like pushing tools, creating tools, trying any shortcut. And then if it didn't work, you'd have to like cut that part of the game or redesign it, to your limitations. But man, amazing stuff. And really, I think a lot of the Brits, because there were other companies in Britain that were still doing amazing stuff. And it's because they kind of had a 10-year head start on America on games.
So so when you were talking about working with the sprites and stuff, and you wanted to keep that pencil lineage, so you said you scanned the images, and then you had to shrink them down, and that's what made like the pixel style as we know today. So
you're scanning a giant image and then you're reducing it down for I believe I don't know if it was a 16 by 16 pixel or a 24 by 24 pixel sprite. So it's tiny amount of pixels, right? And if the character moves enough within that area, you'll see a better line described, right? If it's still and you're just having to hold on this thing and you don't refresh that line, right? It'll fall dead because it'll just be a bunch of blocks. But if you keep that character moving across a lot of frames, then it just won't look like a bunch of blocks. It'll look like a line moving. It's pretty cool.
Oh, dude.
Pretty cool. And we did the same thing with Neverhood then. So then I started my company. We had a lot of the animators on it. Mike Dietz and Ed Schofield were amazing art directors and just brains of the whole thing. Well, they were then taking a puppet animation image. So instead of a line and moving it, they're taking a sculpted head that's been digitized and it's being moved, so a little eye will just be kind of ghosting, around. And suddenly you can see the sculpt, you see the highlight and the shadow. And so it was kind of the next step for us on that. It really looked like you were playing with clay in this total low res, low tech.
Yeah, you had some games back then who obviously if done right, it looks amazing, and then other times it doesn't.
It looks chunky. Yeah. Back then, like a company would come up with like a new streaming technology and someone would just buy them for like $700 million. Like they just write one tool and go, we invented, 100 pixel by 100 pixel streaming, and everyone would be like, but we just bought you, And like now you couldn't believe how bad it was. But back then it was really hard to do, a really big deal.
Well, and obviously you worked on a lot of games that appears to be on Genesis.
Yeah.
Are you a Genesis supporter
Yeah.
more so than Super Nintendo or
Yeah.
Nintendo?
Genesis is a better system.
Oh,
It's
there you go.
oh,
There you
flat out better. So, um, I'm just talking about because it's so much faster
go. Hmm.
is all. It went for speed. That's why Sonic, it can load in so many backgrounds, just you'll never see that on a SNES game. But SNES can do some 3D with the Mode 7 technology and stuff that Genesis could never handle either. And they had a more developed, broader palette that you could always use on SNES was always a better palette. But
Yeah.
to me, the definition of a game has to live within its speed is where you get the ability to do the game. So technically, I think the Genesis is a better gaming machine and the SNES is a better art machine.
I still have my Sega Genesis from when I was young.
Yeah, so
So
do I. I still have
that's
my first one from back in the early 90s when Sonic came out with it. It
that's
was great.
awesome.
That was a great system. And just the explosion of the mainstreaming of the American video game. So I had an Atari 2600 back when they came out, late 70s, early 80s. And we didn't see that kind of explosive growth until the Nintendo was big, but Genesis and Super Nintendo, that era was so much bigger. It was huge.
So were you so you witnessed the video game? Did you witness the video
Yeah,
game crash?
I was there. That's the only reason why I did so well in it was I was just this dumb guy that happened to be there at the right place at the right time. It blew up underneath us. I got to start a company. I mean,
There you go.
it would not have happened 10 years before or really 10 years after because by then they were doing PlayStation CD-ROM games that were way beyond, I did some, but it wasn't my thing. By then it had gotten beyond me. And by the time I was doing 3D high poly count stuff, now I couldn't run a 300 person company to do Grand Theft Auto.
Mhm.
My
But yet
friends
it's
still do. The ones that adapted that didn't die out like me,
mhm.
they're doing fine out there. But
But
it's just not what I'm interested in.
no, absolutely. But yet it's interesting on how when certain games go back to those early 90s games on how amazing
Yeah.
like it does. So it makes you really think cuz to like
And
especially
modern indie kids that are
Mhm.
doing their own low res 90s style games. I love those. Like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah. You should be doing that all by yourself. You should be with your tiny, tiny team. You should be doing that.
Mhm. I mean to me like especially nowadays with the current gaming there shouldn't even be a category of graphics because it's like as long as you have a good engine and stuff graphics mean nothing now like
Yeah.
it's gotten to that point almost to the point where I think it's kind of gonna go the way to where it's gonna seem too unrealistic like remember when Beowulf came out
Yeah.
the movie Beowulf
Yeah.
and it was probably like, wow, this is some amazing technology and stuff, but your human eye understood like that's not real.
You're
It's
like, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think that's the way games are going nowadays too.
Well, a game doesn't have to be high res. That's the whole thing. What is a game?
Yep.
Jenga is a game. It's a
Hmm.
bunch of wooden blocks. What is a game? An Atari 2600, playing tank with your friend. That's a game. So is Candy Crush. So is Fortnite. So are all these things. So are these little low res, you play one pixel, one little guy or whatever. It's like anyone can make a game. That's what's cool. And so there was a time when kind of the high poly count snobbery was there. And that'll always be the top end of the production or whatever. But it's kind of like, I don't have to do that. It's like I don't have to carve Michelangelo's David out of marble to be an artist. I can just draw here on a yellow pad, be an artist.
Well, let's I guess we'll transition over into art then. Speaking of that, what I'm curious to know what are your thoughts about abstract art?
I mean, I personally like it. I don't think it's the best.
Hmm.
I think it's a different skill set. I think it's about an idea and communicating a big design, because I look at abstract art and
Mm-hmm.
I look at stuff and I go, I can't do that, you know. Even the really bad stuff, like I've tried drawing really bad, like Paul Klee or Picasso, and they were draining something out of themselves that put them in this state of almost like an imbecile, And I try drawing bad and I can't. And they
But
can all draw good. So I'm only saying they draw good and they choose to draw bad. I go, that in and of itself is a weird stripping out of, they're saying there's no rules and we're stripping out that formality from it. But I just have way more respect for skill. So
mm-hmm.
Michelangelo's David, I just can't put it on the same ground as a Jackson Pollock, the dribbles on the canvas guy. So I'm just going like,
Yeah.
I dig what Jackson Pollock did, but I don't respect it like Michelangelo's David or a Bouguereau, these amazing paintings and figure drawings and things that really I can just tell. I go, I could study my whole life and I couldn't do that. But I really could probably pull off a Picasso before I died. I probably could maybe even do a Dali or a Warhol.
Do you have a specific art period that you really enjoy?
Really all of it. I've studied all of it, so I have a decent grasp of a lot of it. Like I really love cave paintings. I love the caves of Lascaux because they're so cartoony and designed, and you see that all the way back to the first art that we've ever had. Man was always an amazing artist. It's so cool. He was two things we know about him. That's Chesterton. He was religious and he was an artist. Those are the first two things that we know about him. I go, hey, that's me. So I kind of picture that guy in that cave. I'm going like, were there thousands of them doing it? Or was it just one guy? What if he was like the only one? And like what were they thinking he was doing? You'd have to have his little candle or his torch or something. And he goes in there and he's blowing paint and he's drawing the bison. We don't know why, And then for that painting to last this long, there's something about him being, we don't know who he is, but he is not quite immortal, but he's pretty dang cool that his art has been enjoyed by so many people. So there's that period. And then probably fast forward to right around, from 200 years BC to 250 years AD, the winged Victory, the Nike, with the wings that has its head knocked off, like that giant 18-foot tall statue is pretty amazing. Then you go to the Renaissance and Michelangelo's David and Leonardo and all that, pretty amazing. Fast forward to the late 1900s is Bouguereau, so the peak Romantic era, and going into the Impressionists with John Singer Sargent, just a great artist. And then I really do like the funk of modern art. So in the early 1900s with Armory Show, Marcel Duchamp, all these names of like these de Kooning, who just makes ugly art, but it's funny. The Scream, we've all seen The Scream.
Yeah.
That's right. That was the turning period where they're going, we're going to paint you not what you see, but what you feel. So they're trying to go inside the human soul and tell you what's going on. And that's an interesting exploration. But really, I'm a comic book artist, I'm a pop media guy. So the idea that this stuff exists to sell cereal and Happy Meals and toys, is a very different kind of art, or pop music, So I love it all. I really do love the artist every time, everywhere. I don't think modern art is good for us. I'll put it that way. Like, I don't think abstract art, it's cool. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. I like doing NFTs. It's cool. Given what I've seen, shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's my thought with abstract. It's like, it's kind of. Yeah.
By the way, I feel the same way about anime, and there I'll make no friends. But I just go, it's very dated. It's gonna pass.
Yeah.
It's there,
I can definitely see that. I love anime, but I understand.
Well, I love anime too. I'm just saying, and manga, same thing. I'm just kind of going. I mean, I like manga a lot more than I like anime, but I'm just saying, you just kind of. I just bought the what is it? All You Need Is Die, the one that is based on that Live, Die, Repeat Tom Cruise movie. I just bought that 500-page manga.
Okay,
That
I'm
Viz
not familiar with
Entertainment
that
put it
one.
out
Sounds familiar.
about the 2012, I think.
Mhm. I think that's kind of like around because when it comes to anime, yeah, I think nothing can top your 80s, your 90s, and your 2000s.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then it's
My only movie I really like is Akira.
Akira was so beautiful.
Of all the anime, I just go, that's amazing, and it doesn't look like anime either. That's the best thing I can say about it, is that it doesn't look like anime. It's terrible.
So when because obviously you work with you've made graphic novels, comics, and whatnot. I guess what really drew you into going, this is like something about this specific medium is something I want to uh, devote my skill and craft to.
Number one was I was good at it, so I'm not good at a lot of higher forms of art. Because I'm so pedestrian. I'm educated, but I've always just been a cartoonist, just drawing my own stuff. So probably comics are the closest thing to that, right? You just sit down and draw a sequential story in black and white is probably my purest form of me as an artist. It's not a great form of art. It's a very pedestrian, very common. So there's also something about it in that I love blue collar common people who were raised, say, reading the newspaper of Beetle Bailey, Broom Hilda. My mom loved Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah. So my art is very much common manny, so I kind of like the comic. It's also something I can do by myself. So I couldn't do a video game now because I have to hire a team of 12 people. I'd probably drive them all crazy. So comics I can write and draw them pretty much by myself. So if I need a colorist, I have a colorist in the UK, a very cool kid. Catherine does most of my coloring. So that's probably my favorite medium. Video games were fun because I played video games. I was very addicted to them. And I love the idea of making a whole lot of people have a whole lot of fun. Like, it was always fun to think of what they were going to do with this game. I go, this is going to be so fun. They're going to love it. There's something very exciting about that, because people love video games a lot more than they love comic books. When you're playing a video game and you've got your adrenaline rush and you accomplish something and that dopamine goes off, man, you're just a crazy person for a little bit. So video games penetrate people a lot more, but comics are a little more, story. Like, I think video games are a terrible place to tell a story. I think comics are a great place to tell a story.
I think the closest thing with video games to tell a good story, I think, are like the RPGs, like the JRPGs. But yeah,
still, I go, what do you call a great RPG that has a terrible story? You call it it's a great RPG. You don't have to have video game story is totally optional. It's no different than a video game taping a beautiful bouquet of flower on it and giving it to you. And
flowers of Robert Mapplethorpe.
Yeah, like giving you not a maple, not those. I mean, if someone just gave you a beautiful bouquet of flowers with a video game, that's like putting a good story in a video game. It's still a video game even without a story. It's still pretty good. And you don't have to sell them flowers either. And the companies are like going, no, we have to put half of our development team into the flowers. Because people are going crazy for these flowers. Going, no, a game does not need a story. It's great if you put a good one on there, fine. But totally optional. Totally just video games with a poor self-image, wishing they were Hollywood, because Hollywood has more fame. That's the only reason that story is in video games. Has nothing to do with the necessity of it. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite genre of video games? I guess of a video game that you...
I do. I like real-time strategy. So Command and Conquer to me is probably the greatest game ever made.
Command and Conquer. I loved that. Well, wait a minute. I loved Red Alert 3.
Yeah, I love Red Alert. I love Tiberium Sun. I love all that
Yuri's
stuff.
Revenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them. So just
Uh,
that, the idea of like pointing and clicking and doing a little bit of, resource
mhm,
management and stuff, and wars with little peewee guys, and you kind of select them and send them to
mhm.
war and stuff. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it has a very good collection of like a bunch of different types of stuff. Like you
Yeah,
got your point and click sort of thing, but you got also your strategic. If there's a story in there, there's a story, and yeah,
yeah.
that's very good. I don't play those a whole lot, but I loved Red Alert uh, 3 and Yuri's Revenge. Those are the only ones I played.
And the genre, it it needs an update. Like it would be great to do it with ants or with mobs of zombies or something where you can just select armies of them and perform tasks. So that kind of AI and stuff like that is really cool. I have a lot
Yeah.
of friends that work on that stuff, and I think it's probably it probably needs to be explored more in the art form of games.
So I guess connecting kind of back to Earthworm Jim, I kind of noticed that I mean you technically had your goal to get through the game to get to Princess what's her name.
Hmm.
But I noticed a lot of it was like almost little bits of like mini games,
Yeah.
like sort of thing. So was that pretty much intentional? Is that kind of how you wanted to? Was
No,
that
that one.
like
A lot of what happened in Earthworm Jim was by necessity, and it was
okay?
because the way that we brainstormed that game. You had a limited number of things that the character could do. If you wanted to try something new, like ride a ship or something, there was always pressure to put it in more than one level, just because of economy wise. You'd have to use it more than once. So you're always trying to reuse stuff that you've already done. And so, like Nick Broody doing that underwater level, that was just Earthworm Jim just standing there, right, in his standing pose. And you just put him in a still ship. There's no animation on that thing. And then you just move in the background, right?
Hmm.
So that was actually a really cheap level. So we didn't reject it because first of all, it was so economical and it was really fun. But you can see where you can't just come up with a level, and just do anything, whatever you
Hmm.
want. You're always trying to go like, I think the gameplay value is very high. It'll mix up the game a little bit. So it's not just a platform game. And I think it'd be a great level to put here. And this is how economical it is. It reuses these backgrounds from this level or whatever, or it's really cheap because of this. So those are the kind of discussions we had, more so than the story really has to develop, on this level. He really needs to go here. It didn't. We knew that at the end he was going to be at the Queen Slug for a butt or whatever, and the beginning he's going to start in a junkyard. But it's just otherwise they were pretty much separate games. Each level, if you wanted to do a meat level and you go, I just like meat. I want to put a bunch of meat on a grill in the
For
background
that one.
because it's funny, and you jump on hamburgers or whatever. They go, yeah, do it. You can do a meat level. You know,
Very
didn't
nice.
have to tell a story. It was like funny.
So with comics, I guess transitioning a little bit to comics, did you grow up reading comics? Was that like
Yeah.
a big thing that
Mostly newspaper strips though. So
okay, so newspaper
because I couldn't
strips. That's
afford
right.
the
You did.
comic books, I probably about seventh, eighth grade, I started doing comic books, but mostly it was comic strips in the paper. Every day I read them from when I was in probably third grade all the way through till I went to college. So I always read, and I'd get the collections of like Garfield in 1980. They started collecting those back when he didn't look like Garfield. It looked really cool.
I have the Fat Cat 3 packs. So where it's like
Yeah.
the collection of stuff. Yeah.
And I had Peanuts comics we would go to garage sales when I was in I had to be in second grade. And we got they were little Peanuts ones from the 1950s and 60s. They were like novel shaped. And they had just old strips of Peanuts from the 50s and 60s. I loved those.
Wow.
That's what Bill Watterson was reading when he did Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah. Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah. Did you read any of like the superhero sort of comic book,
Um,
or was that
Mine
kind of
were the only superhero comic I really had was Micronauts in late late 70s, early 80s was Micronauts. That was based on a toy I liked a lot. I think I'd gotten some Spider-Man, a little bit of Spider-Man, a little bit of Fantastic Four, but not hardcore. I could never buy a comic from month to month because I didn't know where they would arrive, or what the release schedule was, or have access to the money even to buy them. So really the strip was always in the house because the parents got the newspaper, and I just went through the big comic page, man. Sunday funnies too. I'd read them
Oh, I remember those.
all day. I loved them. Even after I was married, in the early 90s, I was reading the Sunday funnies. I
Hey,
loved them.
you can't drop those. You gotta keep up with them.
Yeah.
So would you say Peanuts was probably your favorite?
Probably
animated
Crazy
comic?
Cat and Ignatz Mouse, which was the Hearst Corporation, did that in the early 1900s. And that's what was probably the biggest influence on Calvin and Hobbes, and Mutts by Patrick O'Donnell
Okay.
or McDonald was big influence on them, was Crazy Cat and Ignatz Mouse. It is probably the greatest comic ever made.
I'll
But
have to
yeah,
check that out. I'm
Peanuts
not
was
super
more
familiar.
mainstream. I mean, Crazy Cat's weird. Crazy Cat is weird, but
Well,
Peanuts is like the greatest comic
yeah.
ever made. It's so American. It's like
Mhm.
baseball.
I was always a big fan of Popeye. I always
Yeah.
try to get some Popeye comics
I
here and
like
there.
Popeye a lot. They had bigger, oversized editions. Kitchen Sink Press put those out that I got. And by the way, they were going to bring back Popeye in the early 90s in a strip form. And King Feature Syndicate called me and asked if I would submit a sample,
Oh,
because I was submitting strips to try and get syndicated in the early 90s. And I turned in my Popeyes, and they
no,
didn't like them.
no. I definitely not want to see your version of Popeye.
I have no idea where those are, but man, I was so excited. I thought I'm going to finally get to be a comic strip artist.
And then, alas, they did not return.
I tried. I submitted a lot to a lot of syndicates, probably over 40 times, maybe 50 in my young career. I wasn't very good, but I kept trying. Late 80s, early 90s.
When I went to college, I know whenever I draw, I'm very heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Is are you did you learn how to be like very light-handed and sort of thing as you practice, sort of thing? Because I never I always struggled with in the end just becoming super
Yeah,
heavy-handed.
I still don't consider myself a great artist, but I do know that the light touch and skill and things like speed, it comes late. So
Mm.
early on, it's a little clunky. You're not in control of that medium. You're not seeing it yet. You haven't been trained to see like through the lines you're doing and have a mastery of it. And then when you get really fast, just like playing a video game, you know what it's like. When you start playing a game and you're learning the moves, it's like everything's clunky. Where's that button? Da da da. And then
Mhm.
fast forward 6 months later, when you're addicted to it and you've played it 18 hours a day, you're not even thinking. You're like, and
Yeah.
your character's just doing so much more. Well, that's where the team was at when they made it. They're so far beyond everyone else and just seems so unplayable until you get there. Then you get there, you're playing more like how the team played it when they designed it. They'd been doing it for 18 months, that you're able to, your skill set is just that is what you have to get to with art or your drawing style.
Mhm.
And it'll get there. If you devote yourself to it, it will become second nature. Your style will become second nature to you, your little flair, the things you do, the light touch, the design sensibility, the storytelling, character, all that stuff will come.
Mhm.
Just like getting great at a video game.
Yeah, I really loved the video, like the current videos that you have so far, which can be found on his YouTube channel, Doug TenNapel. Check it out. But I really loved
We need us some subs. We need us some
get
clicks.
some, yeah, help get those sub count up. But I really loved your encouragement of trying to showcase people. It's like, especially where it's like just grab whatever's around you,
Yeah.
and I do agree with you to where some people can kind of fall into that trap of I need to have specific type of pencil and all this stuff. And it's like, well, you're like in what you said, you're putting yourself is getting into the way of just getting there and then just drawing whatever.
I'm a big fan of trying to get people out of their own way and keep them from giving them excuses not to do things. So I'm taking your excuses away.
Mhm.
And also kind of forgiving yourself, giving yourself permission to be terrible is another thing to do. You know,
I
I did.
noticed your. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like we were talking about earlier. I really love your line work and stuff because there's like a very there's a uniqueness there
Mm-hmm.
to where it's like I guess I would describe it as a controlled chaos
Mm-hmm.
where you can definitely see like all the jaggedness and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, but like you're in control of it and that sort of say. Would you say that that was like a style that you kind of finally found worked for you throughout practicing and all that, or was it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a speed. There is a lumpiness and probably a lack of precision in my art that I give up for the flair and the speed, right? Just it
Mhm.
has an energy. I want that
Yeah.
energy. I don't want it to lay there dead. So a lot of those fast lines came from guys like Bill Watterson, right? Calvin and Hobbes. The animators drew pretty fast. You know, you draw
Mhm.
faster, and there's a flair to it. Probably Will Eisner, who did the Shadow, is another one who's very good. Bill Sienkiewicz, you know, Sean Gordon Murphy draws really fast on Batman. Like guys that are slow, who I really like, but like Mike Mignola, Hellboy, is probably the greatest living comic artist too, but he's slow. Like his line, you know, every line is completely planned. It's not just like Bill Waters going, "We wing it in there, buddy." You know, very different thinking on those. So I'm much more like the fast guys with energy and not so great at planned, well designed stuff. The only design I do is like I'll quickly think about composition or quickly think about something and just kind of put it down and go up close enough.
That's that's very cool because that's something I always struggled with when I took like drawing classes and something I still struggle with is like when you create a character and then seeing that character in like different
Mm-hmm.
poses and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, was is that I mean obviously the more you practice on it the more you like do what is it still drawings like
Mm-hmm.
you did the one with the cow head.
I did, but it was animation that taught me that. Because
Oh, okay.
animation, you have to be able to turn a form in space. So you have
Mhm.
to draw a face. You know, it might take 50 drawings to get it from here to here, and it can't suddenly lose its volume from one to the next. So it's weird because I have this perfect skill set for comics. Oh, I'm over skilled on the volume stuff where you learn animation, and I was only a so-so animator, but I learned enough to know not to collapse a form, you know, as you turn it in space, right?
Mhm.
This hand can't suddenly lose a finger, and it can't lose 3 joints, and it can't lose 5 ounces, you know, as it turns. It's supposed to be the same hand. So you learn how to hold volume and imagine it in your head and build construction around it first so that it maintains itself. Well, then naturally, if you're doing a comic and a character is going from a, you know, he's rearing back, and then the next one he's punching. I'm only drawing 2 frames instead of like
Mhm.
150 if I was animating it. So comics are so much less work, and you have so much more punch because I don't need to see every frame of that punch. I want to know why he's punching. What is the story? I want to know why. And you can't tell that much story with animation because it takes so much time to animate, right? To walk a
Mhm.
character across the room, it's 24 frames for one step rotation, 12 drawings for one step, 12 drawings for the 24. Right? And at 24 frames per second, if you go 24 frames per second, right? So it's 1 second to step, take one step. And I'm like, I want to know why he's walking across the room. I don't want to show you him walking all the way across the freaking room. I don't know why he's saving the universe. It's going to take me a long time to tell. So comics makes way more sense to me than animation. I do love animation. I don't have the patience to be a great animator.
Okay. So do you kind of like
By the way, it was
on
also a benefit of being in video games
Mhm.
because so few frames could live on that cartridge that
Mhm.
there's very limited amounts of animation. So it's actually made for a kind of okay animator just to junk it out really quick. That's me. Whereas I would never make it in feature because you have to be amazing at doing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of frames. I did do about a third of the animation in the Earthworm Jim game. But, you only have to be so good.
Did you say I know you said with 3D you kind of didn't super keep up with it. Have you like dabbled with it like a little bit or something, or just don't even want to?
Maybe just Google SketchUp or something. I can't even do that. No, it's just really, it doesn't interest me. Same thing with like the AI art. I'm not interested in having the computer do a bunch of stuff for me. Really, I got into this to draw. And so I'm not going to put together a CAD sculpture of a thing and rig it and texture map it and stuff. I'd hire a crew to do it. I'd be fine if I got enough money. I'd just hire them to do it. But I would still do all the storyboard thumbnails by hand, maybe on a Cintiq. I have a Cintiq. So I do draw Photoshop and stuff, but I love the drawing. I still love paper a lot. So 3D, I mean, I like it. I'd have something to say in it. I don't think I could do it myself. I'd have to hire a crew. So then you got to, and like they're the highest paid people in the world. So you got to raise a ton of
Yeah,
money, and that's just
it's
ain't gonna happen.
yeah, with like you have your people that just sculpt, and then you have the people who specifically focus on the skeleton and then putting the skeleton and rigging it so it moves
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
And there is a rule in all 3D right now, whether if it's gaming or Hollywood, they will only hire terrible storytellers to animate.
Oh yeah.
They
Oh
they
gosh.
can't tell a story anymore. So it's kind of a dead medium. It's an amazing tool, but put in the hands of, it's like giving a rap artist a symphony. It's like, what are you going to do with this? I can't read music. They can't write music. They're going to give them an entire orchestra. It's like, okay, we'll see what you come up with.
Yeah, do you think that's I mean, I'm pretty convinced that there's, the reason why Hollywood and even video games now are not even making anything original anymore. They're going back to the 90s and the 80s
Mm-hmm.
and stuff and updating it, not for the sake of the original story or the franchise or whatever. It's because they feel they need to right a grave injustice that for some weird ass reason, no sort of thing. And really, in the end, I think it's just because they're hoping that with future generations, they'll look at their version and go, "Oh, that's the superior one." Where it's like, "Well, that's not even where it came from,"
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing.
I don't know what exactly motivates them. I know it's almost all really bad principle, like
Hmm.
it's non-principled. So let's say it costs a lot of money to launch a new IP. So you're going to go back to an old IP. Let's redo Pinocchio. Let's redo Lord of the Rings. I get it. It's expensive to do it. And then they have a new writing crew and a new director, and they go, well, I can't just do a trace over. Although I don't see why not. Not that I care. I don't care. I just want it to be good on whatever grounds, whether if it's new or if it's a trace over, I just want it to be good. So compelling character and story. Now, the compelling character and story that they can't do because they're terrified of claiming a moral exists. So they have to write something that is an adventure with no stakes, no moral stakes. It's kind of my beef with a lot of manga and anime is because it came from Eastern tradition. I just don't think they have a linear Western story arc. So the ones that studied American, Speed Racer and even Akira studied a lot of Disney.
Hmm.
Akira Kurosawa, who did Magnificent Seven, just saturated in Westerns. I mean, the Seven Samurai, they're saturated in Westerns. So Japanese art's amazing. And when they try more, more broader traditional storytelling, character and plot, they're incredible at it. I just wish more of them did it. Same thing with the Italians with the spaghetti Westerns, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Italians made some of the greatest Westerns ever, and they weren't even in the West,
Love me my Westerns.
Yeah, it's Sergio Leone. That's Italy. So I'm only saying when I don't own it. America doesn't own the West. The West goes back to Sparta. It goes back to the Old Testament. Jews. It's like there's almost nothing Western about the West. It's a Western trajectory of where we went, kind of thing, is more what it describes. And there's a rejection of the West in Hollywood and academia, just going like, it is the patriarchy, traditional religion. That's where we came from. We have to progress beyond the West and all these old-fashioned notions of love and God and life and family and heroism and patriotism and just name anything good, prosperity, farming. We hate everything.
They just never and yet it keeps.
We will transcend the human body and put a soul in a machine. I'm like going, F you. You people are psycho, and you're telling stories now. Stay away from my kids, you psycho.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it keeps failing. I mean, you said it earlier that in the end, until it actually collapses, it's like they're corporations don't care even when they lose money. But it's
their religion.
Yeah,
it is their religion.
It just keeps failing, and
evil can go a long. Dude, Aztecs used to throw people's heads down the ziggurat or whatever it was. It's like whole civilizations can rise on what these evil people are going to make with it. You know what I mean? They can live off other people's bodies and just other people's income and other people's ideas in the past, and they can go and explore into space and just merge people with animals and marry children and just do all their weird psycho stuff in the name of not following God. That's their whole thing, is just they will abjectly rebel in every direction they can. Okay. And they can build a whole civilization on it that will end up just destroying everything. Fine. That's why I think that's their goal.
I think Jesus even said, and I do believe what he said with the times of Noah. I mean, they're trying to create hybrids, and you will see hybrids again.
It will be greater. It will be better on Sodom and Gomorrah in those days. I'm only saying you read the book of Revelation and it doesn't end well. Sorry, guys, but we don't progress. We don't evolve and get that much better. The truth is always there. So individuals can always repent. Societies can even repent. But they just tend not to.
I mean,
man's heart is just bent on it, he's a rebel. So my message to everyone out there is repent. It is always to personally stand before your God, repent, believe in Jesus to be saved. I wish there was I don't wish there was another answer, but I'm just saying there is no other answer. I've tried I want to get given fine. What do you want me to say? Recycle? Draw better? There is no other answer. And people are going to like, how are we going to fix this? I'm like, there's only one answer, just like math. 2 + 2, there's one answer, and the number of wrong answers are infinite. There's only one answer.
And that's exactly what Satan does. He twists it just enough to where it just branches out into a bunch of wrong, truths. And,
I mean, I'm sorry. Truth's nature is there's only one answer. Are you in the room? Am I in the room? Yes. There's only one answer. There's no other answer. I'm not both in the room and not in the room at the same time. Everyone's going like, no, they prove the particles. They go through a split and sometimes they're a wave. I'm like, you know what? Are you in the room right now? Yeah, you're in the room. There's only one answer. You're not both in the room and not in the room at the same time. You idiot.
Yeah, it's like, I'll just keep hitting my water bottle and I guarantee you sometime I'm going to go through it. It's like,
Yeah. I didn't invent that, by the way. Aristotle did. Law of identity, A is A. It's a long time ago, guys. This isn't new. It's like, you have to have gone to college to not believe that stuff. That's why Hollywood can't tell good stories, because they will not sit there and say Aristotle was probably onto something. A is A. They're going like, whatever it is, he's probably a racist and probably a paternal. He's probably like, he was so abusive that A is A can't be true.
And then they like with, especially with Hollywood, with the franchisers, they're just like you said, they love the money. It's their religion. They're banking on that franchise. Well, I'm sure the people from the franchise will support this. Then they don't, and then you go, you guys are toxic. You're not true fans. And it's like, are you? It's like, oh my god, the mental gymnastics these bozos go through.
Yeah, and they can do a rainbow Mickey, but I'm like, I don't have to like it, and it's not good. It's not, Rainbow Mickey's not good. Diverse Lord of the Rings is not as good.
Well, that one doesn't even make any sense, because I'm pretty sure Tolkien like had everything laid out, and then they try to be like, well, it's from this part, and it's like, no.
It's weird because I don't care so much about diverse Marvel, just because Marvel isn't as respected to me as Tolkien is. You know, Tolkien's just so much more sacred. By the way, there's always been diverse Shakespeare. I mean, I see old productions from the 50s and 60s where they have a black cast and stuff. It was just like, who's the best actor? Okay. Because it doesn't have to be. Shakespeare had women playing men's roles. Okay. They're actors, good actors. So it's weird. You fast forward to Hollywood now and they're like, if it's a black character, it has to be played by a black guy. And I'm going like, that was not ever Shakespeare. And a great actor should be able to play any race and any sex. So the idea that you have to have a trans guy play a trans guy, going, how about a straight guy play a trans guy? How about a gay guy play a straight guy? It's like, you're like defying your own art form because you're an idiot. Gosh.
I did a show recently with Crumbrion again, and we talked. There was this one voice actor who
we love you, Chris. Hello.
We do love you, Chris. I don't know.
Even though I call you he, I still love you. Okay.
No, it's all good. But I brought up there was this anime voice actor who, like, he trended a while ago on Twitter and stuff, but he wrote this whole try not to swear. He brought this whole thread of like, I'm no longer doing this role because it was for Bleach, the new Bleach movies that's coming out. And this guy's like, he voiced the role of someone named Chad. And Chad is half Japanese, half Mexican. and then he took this time to project his clout about how he's so amazing because he's giving access to person in colors and giving them all that stuff. And it's like, you do realize that when you're declaring that you're no longer doing roles of person of color, of one, you're telling me that's your first go-to is to what color is this person's skin.
Yeah.
And then two, you're stating that, well, they're never going to have an opportunity. So pat on the back for me because I'm giving you access. My favorite is that the character in the show doesn't talk a whole lot. So in the filler,
he's a robot. Yeah.
No, he's a human, but he's one of those tall, like, quiet people. And it's like, well, good job for you to handing over a role to a person like, well, at least in the manga didn't talk a whole lot. So maybe you got some more lines in the filler, but good job for you of giving that role specifically.
Yeah.
I wonder why you didn't care about that like years ago.
The artists behind that are not being good artists. Most artists really can just go to hell. You know, they're not doing what their job is. They don't even know their job. They're so dumb. That goes for painters and comic book artists and everything. They don't want to stand up and try something. They don't want to tell the truth. They really don't look inside and actually write what they know and draw what they know with bravery and with balls. They just look at culture and just copy and paste it. You might as well not exist. You just look around at your culture around you and say, what everyone tells me to do, they pull the string and my mouth opens and closes. I'll do what they say and I'll try and get friends and try and get money, try and get their approval. You're not an artist. You're terrible. You might as well quit. You could probably do more art laying brick. It literally doesn't matter what you do. That's, to me, the most horrifying thing is an artist should wake up every morning and going, I might as well not be an artist. Why? Do it. It's hard. And and you have to know the truth. And then you have to put that truth out to other people that you love. And most artists are just they don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing anything. To copy and
They
paste your culture is like dumb.
and these
Unless it's true. It's never dumb to to copy and paste the truth. It's like, go copy and paste the truth. Fine. They're going like, Black Lives Matter is true. It's like, no, it's not. So now you're copying and pasting a lie. You're literally a propagandist now. Most artists have become propagandists.
yeah, it's because they want that quick surge or this quick. A lot of it's actually delusional surge of power and thinking that when the enemy is defeated, we're gonna get our spot at the banquet table. And it's like, you fools, they're not gonna let you at the table because they never cared about you
Yeah.
because you're sheep. And
And we've never had more tools. Like there's never been more people making games. There's never been
Mhm.
more people making movies. Never been more people making animation, painting, drawing, Photoshop, web comics. We've never had more, and it's never been a bigger pile of shit. So the problem was not that people didn't have access to the tools, because now everyone's got access, and we're
Yeah.
revealing that there's like a handful of artists out there, just a handful worth anything. Really,
Mhm.
they kind of self-selected themselves out in the past.
Yeah, it's like what you when you mentioned Vic in the beginning too. I definitely think it definitely has to do with faith as well too, because that's what you got.
Oh yeah,
That's what you got hot water for. Is that it's like no, like, and the and that's what gets me too. Is just it's well, one, you're making you're inflicting the self victimhood upon
yeah,
yourself. I'm
yeah,
We're not doing it because all we're saying is this is what you believe, and you're taking it as, well, you don't see me as a human being. It's like, well, first of all, God actually told us to love everyone, that agape
right,
love, to
right,
to have that godly unconditional love for people. That doesn't mean we have to agree with what you're doing. That
yeah,
assures means we don't have to listen to what you're doing, and that sure doesn't mean that we can be pushovers about
yeah,
it too. And I think that's actually where a lot of Christians fail to understand is just because you follow the word, and you believe in Christ, and you believe that that was God breathing through people to share his message with his creation, that doesn't mean that you can just let people push you over and
yeah,
knock you down and stuff. And then we're seeing the complete opposite too, where we're seeing progressive Christianity, which isn't even real Christianity at
yeah.
all.
I know, and it's the front
It,
lines of the
it's
war are now inside the church. It's not
it,
even outside. Culture's just done.
yeah,
Now it's in the church is where the
yeah.
front lines are.
And then that's where all these people pop up. It's like, well, I'm a Christian. It's like, oh, what does the Bible say? Well, it says this, but I don't. It's like God laid it out exactly what he wanted to share with
Yeah. It's
his
weird
people.
how in the moral majority 80s, when I was a conservative Christian and all the
Mhm.
atheists would like make fun of the church and go like, the church, they're a bunch of sellouts. They're a bunch of liars and frauds. They're so judgmental. They're terrible. And now I say what they say about the church. I go, not the one true church, but I'm just saying the pop church, people sitting in the
Oh
pews.
yeah.
They're all a bunch of woke effing sellouts. They're liars. They are phonies, big phonies. They're legalist and judgmental like they've never been before. And now all the woke Christians are going, why would you say that about? I'm just agreeing with what you said back in the 80s, but now I'm just saying it today. You don't like hearing it now. They all agree that, like, oh, the evangelicals, they have a big problem. Yeah. How about the woke Christians are also at least as fake and at
They
least
don't.
as hypocritical? They're like, no,
They
don't talk
don't.
about our people are really good, really, really good. Oh, so you're the moral majority now. It's like they want it both ways. I'm just going, I finally have the luxury now that all the woke Christians are here. I get to criticize and make fun of the church. They're a bunch of sellouts. They're fakes. They're frauds. They're
Yeah.
antichrist. They're judgmental. They're hateful.
And just listen, they don't know the word. They
Yeah.
refuse to know the word. They twist
Yeah.
the word. The biggest thing is they water down the word. It's all about, as long as you feel good, it'll be okay. It's like, no, that's not at all. Like,
Yeah,
God can
we
help
all
you.
want to recreate our God in our own
Yep.
image according to our own culture.
Mhm.
And it's a terrible, every Christian has to be aware of it. Even myself, when I read the Bible, I go like, whoa, let God be, let him be,
Mhm.
because I can't be saved by a God of my own creation.
Yeah, because well, that in and of itself is the hilarious part. Because then why would you like? That's not even a god. Why would you even worship that sort of god if he's
If
not the
God
one?
agreed with me and I approved of everything he did and he agreed with my entire culture, I would know he was fake. So the idea that like all these woke Christians are making this God that approves homosexuality and I'm just going like, that should be your first alarm bell. I'm
Yeah,
sitting there reading Genesis, and it's like this God is like he's like from another planet. I'm going like, that's part of why I follow him, is because he's so strange. No
yeah,
guy would make this up.
yeah, and it's laid. I mean, that specifically, it's laid out through the entire Bible. I mean,
Yeah.
with marriage, you have Genesis, Jesus himself. I mean, for like
It's
Jesus
insane.
used
Yeah, it's insane. I'm
Jesus
telling you, the
uses
whole Bible
men
is
in.
just the craziest, coolest book I've ever read.
Oh my gosh. Well, Doug, we're coming up on 2 hours here. We're at 5 minutes, and I meant to ask you if you had stuff to do, you can.
Yeah, I'm ready to jump.
You're ready to jump. Okay, cool. Well, we
I mean, if you
covered.
want to do more, we can always do it again. It's better to do it again. Is all.
No, no, yeah, that's what I meant. I meant to ask you if you had a time frame because I didn't want to keep you uh, from anything. But
No. I got to go to the bathroom mostly. But
oh,
we'll do
okay,
this again. This has been fun. I love these
same.
kinds of discussions, dude. I love them.
Yeah, I'm always down
You
to
ask good questions because you're not an idiot.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's probably only 3 of you on all of YouTube. So good job.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, again, Doug started has finally been released from the clowning that is YouTube. Check out his YouTube channel, Doug TenNapel, and I do have his other areas where you can follow him listed in the description below. Aside from YouTube channel, Doug, did you want to plug anything else? Was there anything else you wanted to plug?
Not really. I'm on Doug TenNapel in Exile on Locals.
Hmm.
I'm Doug in Exile on Rumble, I think. I'm Doug TenNapel on Twitter, but you will be offended if you follow me on Twitter. Like, I purposely try and offend almost everyone I know on there. So
Oh,
I'm just warning you.
I get a giggle every
We have
time.
a sock puppet show called Ed in Exile here on YouTube that I really enjoy. That's a lot of fun too. It's all political commentary with a sock puppet. And then the
Oh,
big thing
nice.
is my art channel here is Doug TenNapel, where I'm trying to doing a lot of inks and watercolors, just artsy art, having fun.
Well, there you go. And then, of course, feel free to smash the subscribe button, hit the like, and then over
Give
on
him a
Rumble.
like, give him a like, and give him a comment, or you're mean. It's literally mean to watch a whole show and not give him a like and give him a comment, because it's like paying him money. And if you're really nice, you'll copy the link and put it out on your social media and say this was a great show. Any
Yes.
episode.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
like literally throwing money at his face.
Chaos Smash says, I'll give him a punch. Rude. But yes, you can find my other social media listed in the description below. Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube. Same with Doug's social media in the description
MySpace.
below.
MySpace.
Also, what's up?
MySpace.
MySpace.
That's a defunct, dead platform. It's an old
I was
man
gonna
joke.
say, is that even still up?
It's I don't think so. It was before Facebook.
But Doug said he is on Locals
Mhm.
as well, and I'm
Mhm.
also on Locals as well. I know on Rumble the Locals pages are connected, so you can check that
Mhm.
out over there. Doug, thank you for responding back. Thank you for giving us insight on your story and everything like that. Really love the video game talk. Really love to learn about the behind the scenes stuff. So that
You're a great interviewer. I'll come back anytime you want.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks again, you guys. I'll catch you on the flip side. But love you guys. Thank you all for your support and have a good rest of your night. Adios.
Blessings.
Blessings.